This is a recording of the Kansas City Secular AA Speaker Meeting held every Saturday night at 7 o'clock p.m. at HJ's Youth and Community Center, 6425 Warnell Road, Kansas City, Missouri. This is episode 18, and our speaker is Stephen B.
Welcome to the Secular Speaker Meeting. I'm Simon, and I'm an alcoholic.
Simon.
I've asked Cass to read the preamble.
I'm Cass, I'm an alcoholic. AA is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others to recover. We have no dues or fees for membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help others to achieve sobriety.
Thank you, Cass. I forgot to do... Our secular group attempts to maintain a tradition of free expression and to conduct a meeting where all may feel free to express any doubts or disbeliefs that they may have and share their own personal form of spiritual experience, their search for it, or the rejection of it. In keeping with AA tradition, we do not endorse or oppose any form of religion or atheism. Our only wish is to help those who want recovery without having to accept anyone else's beliefs or having to deny their own. During the meeting, I'll pass around this coffee cup if you'd like to help contribute to the podcast or rent coffee or whatnot. It's always appreciated, but it's not necessary. We celebrate extended periods of sobriety. I forgot to do this last time. Is there anybody who would like to celebrate any extended periods of sobriety? All right. After our speaker, Stephen, here talks for 20 or 30 minutes, we'll pass around the microphone if you'd like to respond with anything that you've heard or talk about anything that's on your mind. That would be the time. It's an open meeting. I believe all of us are alcoholics tonight. Not, I guess, 100% positive, but if you're not, you're also welcome here. So if you have any friends or family members who would like to come and check it out, they're welcome. I think that, all these are broadcast also on secularaaspeaker.org. So if you'd like to listen to past speakers, you can find them there or look it up on whatever you listen to podcasts on. Then, I don't know. I think that's it. Stephen, right. You want to take it over?
All right. Yeah, I'll go ahead and see what we can do here. My name's Steven. I'm an alcoholic. I want to thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you, Simon, for inviting me to speak. This is my first time publicly speaking at length about my life, the role alcohol and drugs played, and how it brought me here into these rooms. Bear with me, I may be a little nervous. I actually wrote this speech down because I'm afraid without these pieces of paper in front of me, I'd probably be lost and this meeting would come to an end much quicker. So please excuse the formality. I can get kind of anxious, which is no doubt one of the main reasons I chose to self-medicate with alcohol throughout my life. Some people, I've heard before, some people will say that, that they were born an alcoholic, like if it was available to them, as a young child, they would have happily chased its effects right then and there. This was kind of different in my case. Up until I was about 14 years old, I was a pretty happy, optimistic, social child. I was sensitive, though, pretty sensitive. And that was a trait that I detested at certain points in my life. As I said, I was a bright kid, athletic, and didn't suffer much in the way of anxiety. And then I entered high school and entered puberty, and so entered the life of the AA symptom checklist. Discontent, irritable, all that sort of stuff that we've heard about before. Typical conditions and circumstances that give life to alcoholics. I attended Rockhurst High School. It was strict, all male, a bunch of guys jockeying for positions of athletic popularity, social popularity, and academic. At this point in time, if alcohol was readily available, and if conditions would have permitted it, I would have fallen in love with drinking much earlier, probably. But I fought the good fight for about a year and a half or so. I didn't drink, played soccer, and got pretty good grades, and I tried to find a silver lining while I was at it. Meanwhile, though, I walked around so anxious that I swear it was like my body was on a fight or flight response countless times per day. You weren't going to catch me sleeping in class, and no Adderall or Ritalin would help you take notes better than adrenaline pumping through your body. So I kept this up for about a year. I did find friends that I didn't feel socially threatened by and felt somewhat comfortable with. When you're a kid dealing with your own anxiety and self-esteem issues, you tend to find friends who are the same, and some of these friends of mine had a different way of coping. You know where this is going, I assume. So there it is, the summer of my freshman year. My friends and I split a fifth of vodka while hanging out with girls at a friend's house whose mom was gone for the night. I liked one of the girls, she liked me, so how do I get over this social anxiety of a 15-year-old boy who's been deprived of any female interaction for the last year? Drink, drank, drunk. I puked that night and most likely ruined any future chances with said girl. But you know what? That was okay, because I had figured out the cure. Drink this stuff and you're going to feel a whole lot better than you did an hour ago. So my formative brain was like bingo. Right on top of that brainstem that requires a need for shelter, food, water, breathing, now required alcohol in any uncomfortable social situation, which for me seemed to be the majority of situations. So this went on. I practiced my social skills with beer. I made more friends, put myself out there more, and thus seared the need for alcohol in my brain. At 16, my friends and I were busted for drinking after somebody puked out of the car. That was me. Surprisingly, they were still all of my friends afterwards, and we kept on drinking. I saw a substance abuse counselor as part of my punishment, and he told me some people are social drinkers while others drink to achieve the effects of alcohol. At the time, I believed everyone drank to feel the effects, so I didn't really believe him and his theory of social drinking. I didn't smoke pot, but that changed when I was 17 or so. Pot was one way I could get around that stupid DUI law. I mean, they can't technically prove that I'm high while driving, so I can still be under the influence and drive myself to and from the party. I graduated high school, my grades declining ever since I surrendered that good fight against sobriety at 15. I was still playing soccer, although I couldn't really play soccer drunk, so my anxiety still kicked my ass on the soccer field. Nonetheless, I got a scholarship to play at a little school in Fulton, Missouri called William Woods. As I wrote this, I realized this might be the highest part of this roller coaster ride. After this point, it goes downhill more or less. While at school, I was unburdened with the responsibility of staying sober for soccer since I had just had ACL surgery right before I went down to school. In a new environment, I relied more on my good friend alcohol to help me cope with new situations. I had a roommate who was quite similar to me, socially anxious. My first semester, I remember spending as much time as I could outside of our dorm room together because the thought of being alone with said roommate was too awkward for me to handle. It's funny, though, we actually became quite good friends after we both got over our initial anxiety with the help of drinking. By the second semester, we drank frequently together. My soccer team was a bunch of party animals. It was college and we all drank a lot, so whether I was considered an alcoholic or not made little difference to me. In my mind, there was always somebody who drank just as much as me, if not more. I still managed to keep fairly good grades. And by the end of freshman year, I felt for the first time like I had fit in with a group of friends. Coming back home was tough for me, though. I had some serious cognitive dissonance. While at school, I felt comfortable, accepted, and normal. Coming back home, I felt ashamed that I didn't have the same group of friends. I felt like if only my friends at college knew, I'm really a loser and pulled the wool over all their eyes. Steven wasn't this funny, confident guy with lots of friends. He was shy, timid, awkward, and had fallen out with any group of friends he once had. This kind of thinking, along with smoking pot every day, put me in a deep, dark place. Before I knew it, I was developing serious symptoms of depression. I would lay on this couch at my house nearly all day, scrolling through social media, looking at how much fun others were having, and reminding myself how much of a phony or a fraud that I am. I began to lose energy. I lost my appetite, and I started having nightmares as well. At this time, I remembered an ESPN special on a football player named Ricky Williams that I had seen the past year. From what I learned, he suffered from pretty severe social anxiety, and I related to nearly all the symptoms he described. This was a relief, for I had spent nearly half my life thinking that there was something wrong with me, and I guess it just felt better to know that I wasn't alone. So armed with this information, I decided that I would do something about it. I went to see a psychiatrist and was given antidepressants that also helped with anxiety. The medicine worked, and I felt finally free. This was a double-edged sword, though. I was free of my anxiety for the most part, but this was a dramatic change in my life. I still kept drinking and smoking weed because that was how I self-medicated before, and to be honest, at this point, I just liked it. Actually, smoking weed became a lot more fun after I got on the medicine. I went down to school with a new excitement to finally live anxiety-free. Many people saw a change in me after going down to school. Instead of being shy and timid, I was much more outgoing and confident. I began to suffer from emotional intensity, though. I would drink, and I became pretty rowdy, challenging people to fights and whatnot. Luckily, nobody took me up on my offers. I internalized my depression the previous summer and turned it into a chip on my shoulder. My attitude changed. Anytime someone threatened my self-esteem or ego, I thought to myself, how dare they? They don't know what I've been through. This kind of intense attitude made me a very angry person. As I said, I was very intense, and this translated into my athletics as well. I disagreed with the coach, players, and anybody who didn't say things my way. I was definitely on a path to clash with those around me. My coach at one point in time even told me he noticed the change in myself and that I had become a huge prick. Many things were going on in my life under the surface, but in the cloud of confusion and for a lack of better word or description, I had become a prick. As you can understand, though, I took this insult a different way. In my opinion at the time, people liked me when I was quiet, timid, and just didn't get in their way, even if it meant that I would suffer. Basically, I translated it into people didn't really care about my physical and mental well-being, and they just want me to go along with their program and shut up about it. As I said, my emotions were intense. I went from extreme anger towards my coach and then extreme sadness when I was personally consulted by other soccer players who let me know that I was becoming a distraction to the team. Essentially, I did not want to hinder the success of the team, especially for those in their last season. I remember being so upset I cried and knew that I had to get off the team because I really couldn't control myself. I explained to my coach what had been going on in my life and asked for a leave of absence. He accepted while still keeping my scholarship intact. At this point, I talked to the school therapist at least once before I actually got kicked out of school. So, on one day my sophomore year, I discovered that my laptop was stolen out of my room. It happened that my roommate and I left the door unlocked, so I'm guessing someone just walked in and stole it. I still don't know what exactly happened or how. This more or less pushed me over the edge, as I had already had other stuff stolen earlier that year. I thought I knew who did it. He could be completely innocent. I don't know. So, later that night, I went out drinking. When I came back, I decided I was going to confront this kid about it. Yeah, terrible idea, but I did this nonetheless. I banged on the kid's door and demanded he come out and talk with me. To be honest, I'm pretty sure I was just looking for a fight. They may have opened the door and shut it. I don't really remember. All I know is I kicked the door open, and eventually the kid came out. What happened next wasn't a serious fight. Nobody was seriously hurt, but I did hit the kid. Not a full-on swing or anything. I slapped him pretty hard just to egg him on enough. I quickly realized this kid was not going to fight back, so I thought it worthless to do anything else and figured I had made my point, whatever that point was. Someone called security, and security called the cops, so before I could go downstairs and escape on bike, I was arrested by the police. They took me down to the station. The two roommates went with them, and by writing down my own version of the story along with theirs, I had pretty much incriminated myself. Because I had kicked in the door, I was being charged with felony breaking and entering and 2 assaults. William Woods kicked me off the campus and let me know if I came back, they would call the cops again. I think they notified me by email, but I'm still not actually sure how they could have notified me. It was all a blur of many events for me. I went back once to the campus to get the things I needed and went to stay at the soccer house off campus. My parents tried to pick me up once, but I refused to come home. Eventually, my psychiatrist called and explained to me that I may have bipolar disorder, and it was best to come home and get treatment. So the second time my parents came to get me, I left with them. I'm pretty sure at this point I was in the midst of a manic phase. To this day, I can't necessarily remember all that happened and the surrounding of all these events. I know my emotions were intense. I couldn't sleep. I had way too much energy. Talked fast. I spent all my money, etc. I feel bad for my family. They took the brunt of this phase, especially when I was extremely angry. As before, I was not happy at all to come home. I came home and immediately defied my parents in any way possible. I smoked cigarettes and weed in the house. I drank whenever, stayed out late. Pretty much just did whatever I wanted without any care for anybody else. The fact that I didn't get kicked out right then is a miracle, although both of my parents knew and understood that this was mental illness at work. I was sick, although I don't use that as some sort of excuse. At the time, though, for me, it was an excuse. An excuse to drink and a license to do whatever I wanted, since I felt I felt like I had sacrificed my happiness before. I was an angry young man, so I looked for new friends to spend time with, mostly anybody who smoked weed. Anybody my age that wasn't at home attending college and anybody my age that was at home wasn't attending college, and they usually didn't have a steady job either. I hung out with friends who spent a lot of time just chilling in their neighborhood. There was a liquor store on the other street that would sell alcohol to us, and there were a few people around that sold cheap pot. This crowd was a little bit rougher than those I went to high school with, and I felt more at home with them than I did the preppy kids. Years went by just chilling, working a job for a few months and quitting. I started to get into a lot more fights. I began to feel like a failure. My peers at school would be succeeding, yet here I was stuck as the result of being dealt a bad hand in life. This was a lot of pity party, poor me kind of crap. I spent so much of my life feeling timid and scared that I demanded of myself to never be like that again. This is what turned me into the ornery bastard that would slap somebody for any perceived insult. I hated my life, so I felt that anybody who felt the need to kick me while I was down would be sure to regret it. I frequented the bars in my neighborhood and never drove, just walked to and from them. At some point in time, I felt justified enough with resentments that I began breaking into parked cars along the way. I never broke a window or anything like that, just pulled on doors to check if they were unlocked. If they were unlocked, I'd hop in and see if I could find anything that might be worth something to me. This habit became just as addictive as drinking. It was sort of like the intermittent reward system of gambling. Some nights I'd win, some nights I'd lose. Each car I passed just became a possibility of some reward. Most of the stuff stolen was sold to my friends or kept to myself. I figured that life wasn't fair, and if I had the balls to steal, then I deserved the fruits of my labor. During my fourth step work, this is what I would come to call false entitlement. I thought that I deserved this stuff because there was no other way to justify it in my head. So this thieving became a habit of mine when I was drunk. I would wake up the next day and feel usually worse than the hangover that would accompany it. At the same time, though, I figure I had failed at other things in life, and in some weird way, this could be the area of my life I had success in. After all, no one besides my family really cared about my well-being. Society didn't give a shit if I was so depressed I killed myself, and they probably didn't give a fuck if I dealt with manic depression and found it hard to work. I could rile myself up thinking what others would say. Get a job, deal with it, suck it up. This all supported my reasoning and justification. Fuck them and fuck you. If I'm willing to risk my freedom to take your shit, then guess what? It's mine now. I had a perverted way of thinking. Perverted only because I couldn't simply steal knowing all and well that it was wrong. I was becoming a very sick person. This went on. Once I was nearly shot by an elderly lady who came out with a revolver one night. Her grandson backed me up to the street, and I'm lucky he didn't kick my ass. Police arrived, I was taken to jail, and somehow I was charged with something that wasn't burglary. As my morals degraded more and more, I figured that I could be the sacrificial lamb for my family and friends. That if anybody messed with my family or friends, I was the one who could throw his life away because my life turned out to be a big disappointment anyways. I found the kid who molested my brother at a bar one night and I tried to fight him. I chased him out the parking lot trying to slash his tires and cut my hand in the process. He drove away, but I ended up kicking in his mom's window later that night. I could be a very nice, generous person, but drinking brought out demons in me, more or less. So I lived like this for a while, but I straightened up a bit with age. Every now and then I would look myself in the mirror sometimes and ask, what the hell happened to me? Because honestly, and this is some really, it's intimate stuff for me, but honestly, at certain times I tossed around the idea of killing myself or someone else if I felt like it was justified or necessary to do so. I do not like thinking about myself as someone capable of such evil, but I understand now that good and evil is not an either-or concept. We are a duality of both sides, a microcosm of the world we live in, where good and evil both have their parts to play. That's some philosophy shit, but anyways, I believe I've set the stage for the final act that led me to these rooms. On July 19th, I was sitting at home watching TV with my dad. My friend called me and asked if I wanted to go out for someone's birthday. On a whim, I decided to join my friend and others to this party. This on-a-whim concept is crucial because in no way did I believe it was going to be anything other than an average night of partying. So my friends pick me up, we swing by Quick Trip so I can get a pint of vodka to drink, seeing as I had no real bar money for that night. I get the pint and let a friend take a few drinks, but I pretty much kill the whole thing in a 10-minute car ride. I remember getting to a restaurant, sitting down and getting a beer. Next thing I know, I have hopped in someone's car, taken a pistol from the console, and a phone along with it. I get out the car and a big man approaches me, saying something like, "Hey, that's my stuff," and walking towards me. As he's walking towards me, I cock the gun without a single thought going through my mind. I assume I was trying to non-verbally tell the man to back off, but nonetheless, there was no reservation in cocking this gun. The man backed up, thank God, and I turned around and just ran down the street. Pretty soon, there were cop lights and somebody ordering me to stop, asked me questions, asked me where the gun is at, yada yada, and I'm in the back of a paddy wagon being taken to jail. I went to one place in South Kansas City, then was transferred over to Jackson County Jail later. As I finally settled in the Jackson County place, I'm thinking over what I did the night before. How it took only seconds of wrong decision making to get me in this position. How nonchalantly I cocked the gun in front of this guy. Literally nothing going through my head, like cocking this gun was just some automatic response. That terrified me. Not only had I done that, but it literally was split-second decision making that got me in this position. If I could go back in time and edit out the 1-minute clip of me deciding to hop in this guy's car, I could be at home rather than stuck in this fucking cell pod with no clocks to give me any bearing of time whatsoever. This shit really did terrify me. And I realized there was only one way to absolutely 100% guarantee I can maintain control over my actions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that was Alcoholics Anonymous and quitting drinking. That was the only solution for maintaining complete control over myself. I would eventually be bailed out of jail. That was relief. But upon leaving, I was given my official charges for what happened. First-degree robbery and armed criminal conduct. I'm no lawyer, but I knew this was some pretty serious shit. I had to know what I was up against, so I went home and Googled first-degree robbery punishment in Missouri. I still don't know the exact range of punishment, but the lowest I have seen is a minimum punishment of 5 years in prison. Armed criminal action would make it so that there's no possibility of probation. Either way, it is saying that I would be looking at prison time. I stay in good hopes that I could possibly receive probation, but to this day, I honestly don't know what will happen. The overall effect on me was pretty horrifying. Since then, I've had some bad days where it eats me up inside, and some good days where I seem to be able to compartmentalize this and shove it into some deep, dark corner of my brain. I worry the most about my mom and dad, especially about my mom, and how she would deal with it if I were to be sent away. Both my parents are 60 years old, and I hope I don't lose any more time than possible with them. Today is a good day, though. I've yet to find out what I'm exactly up against, but I have my freedom right now, and I'm thankful for it. I addressed the wrongs I committed against others in my fourth step, and I saved up enough to make amends in a way that I see fit. This was no easy task. I worked a lot of hours at McDonald's to save up the money I thought was appropriate. Since July 19th, I haven't drank, and I addressed a lot of the resentments that previously made my life miserable. Resentments are in fact extremely dangerous for me. Now I have something that no judge or punishment can take away, and that's my sobriety and grace. If I must serve time for my actions, that's okay. As I said, I'll take responsibility for it and do it with grace. AA has been without a doubt the biggest, best influence in my life. I love philosophy and I always love principles, but I could never manage to keep any of them for any extended period of time. AA has given me that, principles and a philosophy for life. And for that, I'll be forever thankful. I want to thank you all for being here along this journey. I believe 100% that the groups and weekly meetings are what kept me disciplined through all of this. As of last week, I have 8 months of sobriety and I'm still going. I hate the corny cliches, but AA really did save me, even if I feel like a sucker for saying that. Thank you all for listening to my wandering, complicated life story. I love you all, and I hope that each of you continue to find your own success as well. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Stephen. I think I've kind of been around since you started coming around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Since I started.
I've slowly kind of learned more and more about you. Hung out several times, but you've by and far had the best attitude about. I mean, not just based on your particular situation, but getting sober and staying there. I've really been impressed with your attitude about all of that. And then when I did learn about what you are all up against, it amazed me even farther, I suppose. I really liked having you around. So, I'll start with you, Cass, if you're okay.
I'm Cass. I'm alcoholic.
Hi, Cass.
Wow. Your story is intense and really, I mean, I don't know. It's, I'm kind of like blown away by all that you've gone through. I've been with a bunch of meetings with you, but I still feel like we haven't gotten to know each other that well. And so I don't know. I had no idea the kinds of things that you've had to deal with. And I mean, all alcoholics in the meetings here have had to deal with a lot of stuff. And it's really awesome that we can support each other through that in recovering from it. Not just like recovering from alcohol, but from who we were. I just think it's wonderful that you've gotten to the point that you're at, and I'm happy for you, and I hope that things go well and you continue to have a good journey within AA. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Doug, and I'm alcoholic, and thanks, Stephen, for sharing that. I knew that you were going through some stuff, but I didn't know all of that, and I just want to thank you because I know every time I've had like a month milestone, you're like first person, like, yeah, cool, man. I know that's really hard, and I know we're pretty close to like as far as sobriety wise, and and I've talked to you quite a bit afterwards, and one of the first people I talked to after I first started coming to our group in October, and thanks a lot for sharing. And keep the faith. And, I feel for you, man, and best. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Patricia, recovering alcoholic.
Hey, Patricia.
Thank you so very, very much. I'm really touched and a little stunned and in deep appreciation for your time and that you came out to talk. And gosh, I couldn't help but see so many parallels for me and all of us, actually, and how the disease progresses. And then it's there, it just creeps up. And I heard it in your story. I'm so grateful, too, that you had whatever forces were in place to kind of bring you in, so that you could help yourself and take charge. And I just feel like there's, now there's one more person that gives me hope, too. This is not the first time I've been through this. So because of you, I also feel encouraged. And gosh, I wish you all good things. And if you ever want to talk, please do come up to me and do that. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Courtney, and I'm an alcoholic.
Courtney.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate the story. I'll pass.
I'm Kana, and I'm an alcoholic.
Okay.
I agree with Simon. Your attitude, especially considering everything you have to deal with, has been really impressive to see. When I first heard what you were going through, it was like, that was crazy. And I appreciate you coming and speaking and everything. And it's been good to see you keep coming back and kind of, working really hard at your sobriety and trying to, make good on kind of the things that you've been through and everything. And it's been really nice to see. So with that, I'll pass.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm an alcoholic. Stephen, it's been very nice getting to know you. You're a lot of fun to be around. I think I'd heard a little bit of your story before, so I was aware of the possibilities in your future. I agree that you have had a very good attitude about it, and I think your commitment to staying sober in the face of that is all the more impressive, because some people might say, what's the point? And I also think your story is extremely important to share, to get out there, because those of us who never faced legal trouble when we were drinking were just lucky. Like, it could have happened to me. And I know that. And then, like, the people it does happen to, I'm sorry, I don't exactly know where I was going with that, but I think it's important for people to hear that, and maybe it will catch their attention before they get to the point that some of us have gotten to. So thank you for sharing. It was great.
Did you think of anything else you wanted to touch on? Or did anybody else have anything else they would like to add?
It's Cass again. I just was thinking about something that I wanted to share that I went through recently, just a small thing, but, last week on Friday, I woke up with a pulled muscle in my upper back, and it was pretty bad. I went to the walk-in clinic the next day to get medicine to relieve it, and it was just like, it was a very triggering experience, because I knew that there was a potential to get medicine that would be mind altering potentially, and I was aware of that going in, and I did not say anything to the doctor when I was there about the fact that I was a recovering alcoholic and that I did not want to be under the influence in a way, which I was disappointed in myself by not doing that. I was lucky that whatever she gave me was low dosage enough that I didn't have any physical, psychoactive effects or anything. And it was just, it barely even helped the pain really, but I'm feeling better now, but it was just kind of, I was kind of disappointed in myself that I didn't speak up more. It was kind of I felt like I was taking advantage of a situation where I could get something that I want, even though I probably shouldn't have it. So I just wanted to share about that. So thanks for listening.
Thanks, guys.
Did anybody want to touch on that?
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm an alcoholic. So I have a psychiatrist who knows that I'm an alcoholic and still prescribes me stuff like Xanax and Ativan. And I stopped refilling that prescription last fall because if I have it, I take it recreationally. And so I am 100% there with you on the temptation. Like, a medical professional thinks I'm fine enough to have this, and but you're not, and I know I'm not, and it's just another trial we have to face as people in recovery. So I get it.
Thanks, Emily.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I've gone through lots of different situations where, I don't know, I question my judgment afterwards, but they're all learning experiences, and it seems like you're wanting to be honest with yourself and everybody else, about the situation, so use it like that. Again, Stephen, thank you very much, and I think that's a wrap. We all did it. Good job.